In 1969, more like 1969, am I right? The animation studio Hanna-Barbera released to the world Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? A cartoon featuring a bunch of meddling kids and their talking dog trying to solve mysteries in some quirky locations. And for over 55 years, Scooby-Doo has become one of the most iconic and recognizable cartoon characters of all time. And during these 56 years, Scooby-Doo has had a lot of incarnations, from its debut featuring a laugh track that to this day still throws me off, oh my god, a laugh track, isn't that so wacky? To the series I was completely obsessed with, What's New Scooby-Doo, with a theme song so gosh darn catchy that skipping it would be considered as a cardinal sin. To even the live action movies that I will defend to this day for not just being guilty pleasures of mine, but also being really good movies. And then we have the most recent form, which is this abomination of a show, which has given me mental damage because, good lord, it is so bad, and those are hours of my life I am never getting back. But before we got these modern versions of the Mystery Gang, from 1998 to 2001, Hanna-Barbera released 4 Scooby-Doo direct-to-VHS movies that would be considered to this day as one of the most influential Scooby-Doo movies of all time. And those are what I like to call the Big Scooby-Doo 4. Now yes, we did have some other movies in the past like Reluctant Werewolf and Ghoul School, which I will defend as a good movie until the day I die, but these 4 were the films that pretty much started a Scooby-Doo renaissance, and something that to this day people still talk about just because of how good they are. The first one being Zombie Island, a movie that quite literally needs no introduction, considering that it is one of, if not the greatest Scooby-Doo project ever created by pretty much any studio imaginable. We have Witch's Ghost, starring Tim Curry, one of the most perfect human beings on the planet.
You can't solve me so easily.
And then of course we got the introduction of the Hex Girls, which definitely didn't start a trend where teens just got addicted to goth girls. Don't lie to me. I know who you are. Alien Invasion, which gave us a really good relationship between Shaggy, Scooby, and new characters Amber and Crystal, which I wish they would bring back. Seriously, their relationship is just the absolute best. And finally, we have Cyberchase, which gave us a more digitalized and modern character design and animation design, which implied that we were entering a modern era for Mystery Incorporated. But of course, this wouldn't be a successful franchise without the insane amount of merchandise that was created ever since its debut, which includes toys, food, clothing, spin-off versions of famous board games like Monopoly or Clue, and of course, video games. And funny enough, it turns out that we did get a game based on the movie where the Mystery Gang goes inside a video game based on their past adventures. You still with me? And as expected, I did play it when I was a little wolf, and I enjoyed it for what it was. And then I also enjoyed it again when trying to master it. Did you like that? That's what we call a good segue in this industry. Welcome back to a brand new episode of Retro Achievement Masteries. Today, I'll be getting all 35 achievements for Scooby-Doo and the Cyberchase for PlayStation 1 using the RetroAchievements website, while also getting all achievements in Hardcore mode, which disables emulator features like loading save states, rewind, slowdown, and emulator cheats. Now, unlike Crash and Luigi's Mansion, this achievement set is pretty straightforward, with 21 out of the 35 achievements being progression achievements, meaning that you will get them by just beating the game, while the remaining 14 being tied with collecting certain items in every level that isn't a boss level. And considering that all items are in plain sight, this set is not going to be that terrible. So with that in mind, let's just not waste any more time and begin our mastery on Scooby-Doo and the Cyberchase. Our mystery begins when the gang finds themselves inside a video game based on their past adventures. Unfortunately, this game is being haunted and hacked by a phantom virus that prevents the gang from leaving the game, with the only option being to chase it around and beat his nefarious trials that he took over in the video game, so that the gang may be able to capture it and delete it. However, because this is a literal video game, we must go through multiple worlds so we can corner him and finally escape from this cyber trap. So the game features 7 different worlds with 3 levels each, 2 platforming levels and a boss level at the end, making a total of 21 levels for both Shaggy and Scooby to explore. Why not Velma, Fred, or Daphne?
That's a good question.
And for this video, I'll go into some detail about every level and mention some hard parts, as well as trying to get certain collectibles, even though for the first couple of worlds, it's not gonna be that special, and you'll see why. So with that said, let's just go ahead and begin with World 1, where we have classic Japan. And looking at this game, you can immediately tell what kind of gameplay you'll see for the rest of it. Yes, this game is a Crash Bandicoot clone. Plain and simple. However, that doesn't mean that's a bad thing. But let's just say that when it comes to the identity, this game doesn't do that much to be unique, unlike other Crash clones like Donald Duck Going Quackers or even Lilo and Stitch. I mean, I guess the unique part is the different locations you go, but Crash Warp did the same thing 3 years prior to this, so... I mean, you play as a dog, so maybe that's the selling point. But complaints aside, I still like this game, damn it. And level 1 is just your introductory level where you will learn all the basic moves like jumping, double jumping, ground pound, and your main source of attacks. Throwing pies at enemies, even though you can still ground pound to them to defeat them, making the pies 100% useless. But in this level, we will also familiarize ourselves with the collectibles featured in every level. So as you go through every level, you will see some red boxes on the floor. If you ground pound them, you'll get one of 3 collectibles. The first one being pies, which serve as extra ammo for your ranged attack, which can be useless since enemies respawn when you reload after a death, and pie ammo doesn't reset to the previous amount when reloading a checkpoint. But at least it's nice to have in case of emergencies, as you'll see later. Next we have a hamburger, which restores health when you pick it up. What? You want me to say something else? At least the burger looks nice. And finally, we have a character coin, which equals as an extra life. Now, it should be mentioned that sometimes these items can be in the open, something that we will see in future worlds. But for 90 to 95% of the time, they will be in these breakable objects, and you want to make sure you destroy these objects and collect the rewards. Since for every single normal level, there is an achievement that requires you to collect all pies, burgers, and tokens in the level. And thankfully, you will get the achievement once you collect the final item, whether it's a pie, burger, or coin. So you don't have to wait until the end of the level to get confirmation if you got the achievement or not. However, there is one more type of collectible, that being the Scooby Snack Pellets. But I won't bring them up until they become important, because trust me, they will be important. But as for Japan 1, it's a very simple level that you can beat no problem, especially if you press the triangle button every time you see this blue telephone appear on the top right screen. But after we complete the level, we will get the Classic Japan Level 1 Collector Achievement and Classic Japan Level 1 for beating the first level of the game. Moving on to Japan 2, it's a more challenging level than Japan 1, but with the amount of pies you can collect, you'll be able to defeat every enemy before they have an opportunity to even breathe at you. I guess I would say the hardest part of the level might be these spears that come out, which can throw you off, especially when you want to destroy the boxes. But overall, Japan 2 is also a very simple and easy level. And yes, I know that it's a tutorial, but it's still pretty simple. And we can get the collector and level complete achievements, no problem. But after exploring the cherry blossom bridges and ninja castles, we go and fight the boss of classic Japan, the samurai. And unlike a certain game where winning is almost impossible against a samurai, here we just avoid Red Doku's attacks and hit him with a pie or butt stomp him when you see the chance icon appear above his health. Repeat the process 2 more times, which involves avoiding more attacks and a fire wave, which you can easily avoid by standing where the samurai is, and we defeat our first boss, finish the Japan world, and get samurai. Starting World 2, we head into ancient Rome as we explore the outside of a Colosseum, and this time we play as our favorite green shirt-wearing man, Shaggy Rogers. Now, you are forced to play certain worlds as certain characters, but overall, it really doesn't matter since both Shaggy and Scooby have the same moves. The only difference is that maybe Scooby has a larger hitbox. Even that will not be the case, as I will demonstrate later. But moving on to Rome, this is the point where the game can get very evil when it comes to the Scooby Snack Pellets, especially since they love to place these sons of bitches above bottomless pits, which makes me so glad that getting all Scooby Snack Pellets, it's not required for the collector achievement. Okay, but yeah, I'm gonna ignore the Scooby Snacks because again, they're not required. Okay then, I died again. Nice. Arctic. Or Arctic 2. Yeah, I guess I just spoiled the level. Also, death number 3. That is awesome. But after some silly deaths later, we arrive at the final part of the level, which involves running away from a spooky, scary skeleton chariot, which I guess it's the equivalent of a boulder section in Crash, but as long as you keep holding down on the D-pad, you will never, and I mean you will never, get run over by the scaly man. But after that heart-pounding chase, we collect the last items and finish Ancient Rome level 1 with the collector achievement in hand once again. Also, if it wasn't obvious, the brickable objects are now these silver jars. I won't point out every collectible object in every world, but you should immediately tell right away. Moving on to Rome 2, this level is also not that bad. Although you do want to be careful with everyone's favorite mechanic in video games, knockback. And the main problem about knockback is that so many hazards are after a bottomless pit, like the spear skellies. Thankfully, you can avoid them sometimes by going to the sides of the room, but as long as you're careful, we will get to the end of level 2, have collected all the items, and beat the level and move on to the arena and engage with the boss. And the boss of the Ancient Rome is a big ol' Leon, which behaves the same way as the samurai, where you need to avoid his lunges and then attack when given the chance. However, in between every hit, we will be assaulted by spear-throwing skellies. But as long as you move in a circle, it really is not that hard to avoid. Although before and after the third phase of the Leon, the skellies will do a cross attack that is almost impossible to avoid unless you get incredibly lucky. And I say before and after because once you defeat the Leon, the skellies will do a sort of desperation attack, and if you somehow die to this attack, you have to refight the boss from the beginning. Thankfully, I fought this cat a lot of times and I managed to beat him on my first try and finish World 2 by getting the Leon achievement. World 3 has Shaggy exploring the Arctic Circle, filled with cute polar bears which might be problematic in the future, some seals that trained in snowball tournaments, ice walls that will try to push you into the abyss, and of course, ice physics. That said, Arctic 1 is really not that bad, but this is the first level where collectibles for the achievements are placed in some questionable locations. Or, to be more simple, in the abyss, as you can see by this 1-up. And I'm just gonna say this right now, you will get used to it by World 4. But besides that, the rest of the collectibles are inside these ice blocks, and we can get the Arctic 1 collector achievement surprisingly sooner than expected, since most of the times you'll get all the items until the end. But for this one, we get it, I want to say 3/4 through the level, which is pretty soon if you ask me. But after avoiding snowballs, non-flying birds, and slippery floors, we complete Arctic Circle 1 and move on to Arctic Circle 2, which has by default the hardest collector challenge and the hardest achievement in this set. And with this achievement, I now have the opportunity to talk about the final collectible of the game, the Scooby Snack Pellets. Throughout all 14 platforming levels, you will see these triangular cookies. These are Scooby Snack Pellets, although the game calls it Scooby Snacks, but at the end of every level you have to get a Scooby Snack box, so I'm just gonna call it pellets for the sake of simplicity. But these Scooby Snack Pellets work the exact same way as coins in Mario or Wumpa Fruit in Crash Bandicoot, meaning that once you get 100, you will get an extra life. Simple as that. However, the Scooby Snacks have two interesting quirks that make them different from coins and Wumpa. The first being that starting from Rome 1, they decide to be sadistic and place pellets hovering above the abyss, which makes getting a perfect score by getting all pellets plus the other collectibles and obtaining what is known as a special bonus, which you can only get if you beat the level without dying, a huge pain in the ass. Not to mention that you're most likely going to die trying to get all those pellets, to the point that it could be considered impossible to get the highest score possible, especially with the stiff and almost hard to control jumps for both Scooby and Shaggy. But the second aspect of the Scooby Snack is what makes the Arctic 2 collector achievement infamous in RetroAchievements. While playing through previous levels, you may notice that by getting multiple pellets in a row, you will see this multiplier above the pellet counter, and that's because the Scooby Snacks have what I like to call a combo system, where if you get multiple snacks in a row in a certain time, you will get more snacks, which in some levels you can rack up 1-ups incredibly fast. And for both Japan levels, the snacks are placed in ways that missing a combo is almost impossible. However, starting with Rome, the game decides to not only place snacks above bottomless pits, but also decide to place them just apart to the point that without perfect movement, you will miss the combo and not get a perfect Scooby snack total. Now, thankfully, because of this BS factor, not to mention that later the snack placement is just stupid, the collector achievements do not require you to get every single Scooby snack pellets, except for one level. Arctic Circle 2 is a very special level because it is the only level where instead of doing platforming, you have to take a sled ride avoiding penguins, cracks on the ice that will send you flying, and weird physics that you have to deal with as you make your way to the Scooby snack box. However, besides the penguins, there are also Scooby snack pellets, and this is where the Arctic Circle level 2 collector achievement comes into play. To get this achievement, you need to collect every single Scooby snack in the level. And when I say all of them, I mean you not only have to get all pellets in the level, but also you have to make sure you get every possible combo, meaning that if you see a set of 3 pellets, but you missed one of them, too bad, so sad, try the level again. And you may think that if you miss some, you can just die and try again, right? Well, no, because if you die after collecting any of the 4 collectible items, they will stay collected when you reload back to a checkpoint after a death. The only thing that respawns are the enemies. And like I mentioned before, as a slap in the face, your pie count will not reset, meaning that in the worst case, you have to rely on the clunky hitbox of your ground pound to kill enemies. That said, if by any chance you miss pellets that don't fall into a combo, one thing you can do to save yourself is to continue playing while skipping the checkpoints and then die on purpose so that you get sent back to the beginning of the level and try to get the pellet again without needing to get every other pellet again from zero. So yeah, this achievement is hard, but not in a bullshit hard way like the Twins achievement or even the Sunset Vista. And that's because this achievement is all about patience and memorization, since you just need to create a route and remember where all the pellets are during the level, but also understand how the sled controls, which is not that hard to learn. So because I compared this game to the Twins and Sunset Vista just a couple of seconds ago, you may think I'm gonna go on a 10-hour rant on how this achievement is just bad design and I will just struggle for hours and hours, right? Well, to the surprise of many, I got this achievement in less than 10 minutes. So first off, I played the level normally while trying to get all pellets while learning the level layout. After beating the level and getting the achievement, I went again for a second run. And one positive thing that I will say about this achievement being not that hard is that the level itself is really not long. Arctic 2, believe it or not, takes the same amount of time as a single loop of the Arctic Circle level theme, which is less than 2 minutes, making this essentially the shortest level in the game. So basically, I just repeated the level a second time just to get familiar with the pellet locations, and after a botched third attempt, I restarted the level and went into attempt number 4. And the funniest thing about all of this, I managed to get the achievement without getting every single Scooby snack pellet. Also, I'm gonna try to, in the case that I miss single ones, which is very unlikely because there's not a lot of them, I should try not to get checkpoints in case that happens, so I can just intentionally die and just you know, get the thing. There we go. Okay. Now to fail on future ones. I was joking, game. Oh my god, I can't believe it. You know what? That's okay, because that's a single one. And we can just die and try that one again. Alright, now we die. Okay. So yeah, now we have to go and get that one, and yeah, we're gonna be good to go. So yeah, this is actually a strategy you can do, because yeah, when I first tried this achievement, I thought meant getting every Scooby snack, no matter if you get the combo or not. So yeah, but then I learned the hard way that that's what you gotta do. So you know. Now the good thing is that we already have the combos for all the other ones, so that's good. And yeah, that's actually another thing you gotta be careful, and that's the fact that the Scooby snacks are already... Everything you collect in this game will be collected after you die. So, and this includes the burgers, the pies, the 1-ups, and the Scooby snacks. Ooh, if I got hit there, I was gonna lose the... I was not gonna get that. Okay. Ooh. Wow. Oh, thank God. I thought I grabbed the snack and then died. Oh my God. That was scary. Ow. Okay, now I gotta be careful because there is no bottomless pit in this area. Oh no! Oh no! I missed one! I got it? Wait, I got it? But I missed one! Okay, so you may be wondering what happened. Why did I get the achievement when I very clearly missed a pellet? Well, that is because the required amount for the achievement is actually lower than the exact amount of pellets in the level itself. If you go for a perfect score, Arctic 2 has 136 Scooby snacks. However, if you see the bottom right corner, you can see that the achievement tracker only asks you to get 133 Scooby snack pellets. So basically, you can either skip 3 lone pellets or 1 pellet during a combo. However, because of how short this level is, I would just recommend you go for all pellets, since they're really not that hard to get. The only problem is trying to get the pellets in the middle as you're gravitating towards the wall, as you saw by this 1 pellet that I always struggle for in all my attempts. But yeah, I just got very lucky and didn't realize it until I got the achievement that you don't need all of them. But also, I'm just gonna say this right now, thank God I didn't exit the level, otherwise I would have flipped off and burned my copy of Cyberchase. But with only 4 tries, we managed to get the hardest achievement in the game, meaning that the rest of the game is pretty much smooth sailing. So with that done, we're off to the boss, which is the Phantom Virus riding a polar bear, which might be a reference to something, but I just can't put my finger on it. Oh my God, it's not enough. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, it's 31? No! Oh yeah, the movie. And just like the Leon, the polar bear is not that hard. But, like the samurai, he has different attacks after every hit. For hit 1, you just need to avoid his charges. For hit 2, you just need to avoid his homing spin, as well as some projectiles that the Phantom Virus throws, which honestly are not that hard. The only problem is the polar bear that actually homes in onto Shaggy. And finally, for the 3rd hit, the polar bear will go to the top middle of the arena and throw snowballs at you. He will throw 4 directly at Shaggy, but the 5th one will be a massive snowball which will cover the center of the arena. But going from side to side will not only help you avoid the other snowballs, but you'll be safe from the big one if you stick to the edges. But as a final note, you do want to be careful of the arena, because not only you have to deal with ice physics, but also this is the first of 3 boss arenas where you can fall into the black void. So if you're literally playing on the edge, try to not get knocked back into the pit. But after avoiding the final snowball, we can throw more pies and defeat the polar bear and finish World 3. World 4 sees the return of Scooby as we run through a dinosaur-infested jungle, which can be dealt with the same way as every single other enemy in this game. Level 1 is incredibly easy to get all collectibles. Just mash these eggs and watch out for falling bones and trees and you'll get the collector achievement no problem, as well as beating the level and get the achievement for beating the level as well. And as for level 2, you exit the jungle and enter a swamp and later climb a mountain. And this one can be difficult, especially when you enter the swamp, you encounter alligators, as well as some Wait, let me double check because I'm very terrible when it comes to dino pronunciations. Elasmosaurus, which will try to knock you off by hitting you with their big ol' heads. However, if you stick to the opposite side to where they swing the head, you can avoid taking damage. Now, another way to ensure safety is to take damage while facing the direction that dino is going. This will knock you, yes, but the way knockback works in this game depends on where the character is facing before they get hit, which explains why I didn't get knocked into the abyss during the polar bear fight during this section. But once we exit the swamp, we start climbing the mountain and watch out for falling rocks, as well as avoid some Spinosaurus and have to deal with the high road home edition. Alright, time for the high road. Oh boy. Man, this part... Oh, well, there you go. But yeah, this part in the original playthrough was such an amazing moment. Because of stuff like that, see? It's so dumb. And people say the Insane Bridge is hard. Oh my god, okay. You know, I did Arctic Circle 2 no problem. This is where the game will throw me a bone and say, no, you're gonna suck for the next 2 minutes. Or for the next couple of hours. So once we cross the double bridge and collect the final item for the collector achievement, we finish level 2 and we move on to the boss, where we fight a giant T-Rex while inside of a volcano. This boss is very similar to the Leon we fought on Rome, with some differences. Instead of spears, we now have to deal with meteors that fall down between phases. And as for good old Rexy here, he does charge like the Leon, but during the second hit, he will do a tail swipe, which is very easy to avoid if you avoid his charges while staying in the middle of the arena. However, for the final hit, you do want to be careful because now he will smash his tail on the ground before he charges. And if you're touching the ground while the smash, Scooby will be stunned and will take damage from Rexy's charge. So make sure you jump over the smashes and deal the final hit to beat this king of dinos and finish World 4. And with that, we return one last time as Shaggy as we head into the big city for World 5. And we begin level 1 with a skateboarding section. No, I'm not playing Tony Hawk music since that will get the video instantly claimed. However, this skateboarding section is just part of the level. Otherwise, I can guarantee you that there was going to be another Scooby Snack Collector achievement in this set. That said, we still want to be alert because we have some Shaggy tokens to claim during this skateboarding section. Thankfully, there's only 3 of them, with the first and last being really easy to get, but the second token can be hard because of the depth perception and sometimes some delayed inputs. But once we collect all 1-ups, we ditch the skateboard and start the real level. We play some Donkey Kong 3D edition, avoid some skaters, break dancers, and brute force through Steam until we reach this section, where we have to stand on the left and middle sewer lids to catch a ride and collect a burger and another 1-up, which you can see if you continue on with the level because of the camera angle. And you also want to make sure that every time you see a fork on the road, you comb through all paths so that you can find these trash cans which contain collectibles for the achievement, which will be essential during the final level of the game. But besides that, this level is once again not terrible. So we get the last collectibles to get the collector achievement and finish Big City 1. Moving on to level 2, we have some surveillance cameras that will spawn a security officer if triggered. But we also have some grates to avoid while being moved by a conveyor belt. This part can be tricky, but with some intense moves by Shaggy Rogers, we can get past these sections no problem. However, at the halfway mark, we trigger a small encounter with the Phantom Virus, where he will shoot fast projectiles at you while moving through the hallway. You can either take your time and avoid these projectiles, or you can be like me and just brute force it to the end, since the Phantom Virus will not go away until you get to the end of his section. But besides that, we get the last collectible inside this box to get the collector achievement, go through another conveyor tunnel, and get to the end of City 2 with the skin of our teeth. So if you watch the Cyberchase movie, you will notice that there is no city level in the game, unless you count the town section where the gang meets their game versions. And as a bonus, every boss we encounter in this game also makes an appearance in the movie, with the exception of the boss of Big City, the Funland Robot, which is a villain introduced back in Scooby's first incarnation, Where Are You? The Funland Robot is an interesting boss because this is the only boss in the entire game that you have to damage it while using pies. since he is located on another platform with a black void standing between you and your opponent. And if you think that this fight is impossible because you decide to waste all of your pies, or you ran out of them and you miss your shots, don't worry, because if you run out of pies, after some time, a pie item will spawn in the middle of the arena, giving you 5 extra pies. So as for the boss himself, this fight is all about timing. Once the robot hits the gong, bombs will rain down and explode, while at the same time, the conveyor belt will change directions every couple of seconds. After he rings the gong and the bombs touch the floor, you will have a chance to hit him with a pie. Repeat the process 2 more times and you will beat what is honestly the easiest boss of the game, finishing World 5 and finishing the last level we get to play as Shaggy Rogers. So for the last 6 levels, we will use Scooby until the end of the game. And speaking of the next levels, we now enter World 6, Egypt. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is without question the hardest world in the game. Filled with intense platforming, annoying bats, which seem to be a running gag in this series so far. Like seriously, bats have been the bane of my existence for both Crash and Luigi's Mansion to some extent. Let's hope that Crash 2 doesn't have any bats, you know? We also have the incredible feature of jumps sometimes not registering, an excessive amount of fire, and also a lot of daredevil jumps where you need to jump for items that are floating in the bottomless void. So instead of putting notes and just make this just like any other one of the worlds that I've talked about, I'm just gonna let the footage go and you will see my many fails while trying to conquer this tomb. But yeah, I love the Ace Attorney games. They are really good. Also, my jump didn't work. Nice. Okay, so here we have Egypt, and this is without question the hardest world in the game. God, I really need to go back and see how many times I've died. Also, my jump didn't work again. Nice. All right, let's focus because yeah, this first section can be kind of difficult because I need to do the most challenging thing that you can ask of me, and that is to do basic platforming, which is kind of ironic considering that, you know, I love Tomb Raider, but you know. Oh my god. Wow. Awesome. I went over the damn pillar. Good lord. You know, and here I was thinking that I was going to, you know, at least tackle a game without dying, but no, I died on Luigi's Mansion, so that sucks. Well, oh my god, okay. I died. How sad. What the hell did I get hit by? Okay. Oh my god, I got hit. So much fire, oh my goodness. Alright, time for some quirky games. So yeah, it goes green, red, and then it goes off. Very simple puzzle. The greed is real. Uh-oh. Haha. There we go. Egypt 1 has been done. Nice. And yeah, next up we have Egypt 2, which is, in my opinion, the hardest level in the game. Mummies. And checkpoint already, wow. Oh yeah, the insane amount of fire in this room. I don't think Lara had to deal with this much fire. Just saying. You know, with the Luigi's Mansion session that I always keep bringing, that I lost my temper and all that stuff. I'm surprised, like, I didn't, like, burst into Spanish mode, into insulting in Spanish, because, yeah, that's something I tend to do sometimes. Like, I'm playing, like, a game while having thoughts on English, because, yeah, at this point, English is my first language. Sometimes I remind myself where I live, so there you go. With my insane use of vocabulary. Which, you know, I'm surprised I haven't done that yet. In pretty much the history of the channel at this point, because, yeah. I should save the pies in case of the bats. That is exactly why I decided. That is exactly why I saved the thing. Also, what am I doing? Why am I going for the Scooby snacks? They are absolutely 100% not worth it. Okay, thank God the ground pound registered. Because yeah, the ground pound cannot register sometimes. As of now, I've only mastered 2 Crash games that have time trial relics, and those are Warped and Wrath of Cortex. I was actually scared of the time trial relics because of the Caddy's video on him getting all the platinum relics. However, I will say that Wrath of Cortex was really not that bad. Now, yes, I will admit that some can be very, very baby easy, but also some of them can be stupid hard. Like, I'll say right now, the first 2 ball rolling levels are, in my opinion, the hardest platinums in the game. What you have to do... I'm alive! I almost died, nice. I'm alive, but I almost died. I press circle to throw a pie, but circle is the crouch button. Nice. I'm just wasting lives here, man. I don't care. Lives are overrated. It went below him. I don't believe it. Alright, let's gain a life to lose a life. That's what they say, right? Yes! Oh, okay. Get me out of this pyramid! Tomb, whatever. Oh man, that was awesome. Okay. And there we go, Egypt 2. Alright. We got it. One day I'll get the perfect bonus of this level, but not today. So, after that amazing display of my abilities at being great at video games, we move on to the boss, where we have to fight the Phantom Virus once again. Except not really, because this fight is just an enemy gauntlet. The only way to win this fight is to hit the Phantom Virus, but he's protected by a barrier. However, the barrier will break once you defeat his mummy minions, which, unlike the ones you fight in Egypt 2, these mummies can't be killed by regular means. Instead, we have to play a little game of Bully the Mummies, Mario 64 style, and knock them off the arena. You will know when you are almost done with the enemies because after knocking some mummies, they will stop raining down. And once you defeat all of them, you'll have a chance to hit the Phantom Virus. And as you progress with the hits, more mummies will be added, with the last hit having to deal with 4 mummies at the same time. Thankfully, Pie Ammo will respawn every couple of seconds, so you can keep the assault on these toilet paper freaks. But after all 3 hits, make sure you stay away from the center, otherwise the Phantom Virus will trample you with his camel. And yes, just like the spear attack from the Leon fight, you can die, and if that happens, you have to redo the entire fight. But after a close call, we finish World 6, and move on to the final world of the game, the amusement park. Unfortunately for movie fans, this world does not feature enemies from the past like the tar monster, giant alligator, or a big cat. Yeah, I don't remember that cat at all from the cartoons. Instead, the final world is just a stroll through an amusement park while going through multiple attractions. In level 1, we start at the entrance and move to a wooden section that could resemble Splash Mountain, only to move to a spooky castle where we have to deal with spooky ghosts, Dracula, and giant swinging axes that gave me the ultimate highlight back in my original playthrough. I got it. Gotcha, Velma. Oh man, I still remember when I did the Let's Play and I died the moment I did the jump. It was so funny.
Flashback.
Scooby, you'll need to time this perfectly.
Right?
I got it. Damn it.
End of flashback.
Once out of the castle, we then board a neon-lined float that is sadly way too short, and honestly wish it would be longer. But in this float area, we also get our final collectible for the achievement, and we then get to the end and beat Amusement Park number 1. Level 2 is a more involved stage as we enter this large hedge maze that takes quite literally half of the level. And while we go through this maze, we have these giant killer roses and many junctions with chests that contain items inside. I already mentioned this during City 1, but every time you see multiple pathways, even if they lead to the same place, make sure you explore all paths, because you might and will find a reward at the end or through the entire route. Now granted, it might be useless in the long run, but it's an item nonetheless, and we have to get them for an achievement. However, once we reach the halfway part of the maze, we will get introduced to these catapults that will launch Scooby across the large gaps of water. Every time you take these, make sure you either go straight like an arrow, or if you want to stop, use your double jump to position yourself, which will be important by the end of the level. And once we cross this checkpoint, we now have to launch ourselves through these catapults while getting 2 pies and 4 tokens. And I'm just gonna say this right now. Yeah, I got it. You're gonna die. You're gonna die a lot. After launching yourself back and forward, you also want to head down the right path, since that path leads to a dead end, but you'll be able to get extra items for the final collector achievements. And once we finally exit the maze, we head into our final obstacle between us and the Phantom Virus, a medieval castle filled with archers, knights, slow-moving logs that get me every time, and yes, even more catapults. But after going through this not-so-difficult medieval section, we get to this final catapult section and make sure we use our double jump to stop and break this chest containing the final item so we can finally claim our final collector achievement. And then get to the end and finish the final platforming level of the game, which means it's now time to face the final boss, the Phantom Virus. And this, without question, is the worst part of the game. The Phantom Virus works similar to the animal bosses. He will charge at you, and after a couple of charges, you'll have an opportunity to pie him. However, unlike the Rex, Leon, or Polar Bear, the Phantom Virus not only moves stupidly fast, but he also sometimes locks you in and dashes right in front of you for unavoidable damage. Now I say sometimes because there are times where he just charges like the other bosses where you can avoid it no problem. But most of the times he becomes an annoying prick. As you can see by this footage, I get hit every time except the last charge where I decide to turn around. But if you see these attempts from my original playthrough, you'll see that the turnaround trick doesn't work, which makes phase 1 very tedious and inconsistent. After the first hit, the Phantom Virus will summon thunderclouds, but as long as you go in a circle not too close to him, you'll avoid this attack no problem. Also a bit of warning because the flashing in his face did actually hurt my eyes a little bit. But after the thunder, he will split into 3 and have phase 1 again. However, instead of going across the screen, one of the copies will charge to the center of the arena, and because they're moving constantly around the outer perimeter, it can be tricky to escape. My strategy is to stay in the center and run away when one of the clones is about to charge, which you can tell which one will do so when it does this animation. But after all 3 clones do a charge, they will close up on you, giving you a chance to pie them for a second time, which then leads to the final hit, where the Phantom Virus will grow in size and karate chop you for a couple of times. And this attack, as far as I know, is absolutely impossible to avoid. You can get lucky with some swings here and there, but this is where you will receive all of the damage for this fight. To the point that my biggest recommendation for this fight, if you want to have an easier time, is try to do phase 1 and 2 damageless, so that you can just tank phase 3. Alright, and with that, it's final boss time. Yay. Time for the worst part of the game. Hoorah. I hate this fight so much. Although, like I said before, the music and especially the background looks so freaking cool. But yeah, this fight is the literal definition of bullshit. And essentially what you have to do is you have to do a no damage run of the fight. Because the final phase is by far the most unfair aspect of the game by a landslide. Also, cover your ears, people, or lower the volume. Oh god, that flash. I should be wearing my glasses. What the heck am I doing? What the heck am I thinking? Okay. So yeah, for this point, okay, this phase is not that... Oh, well, never mind. Alright, now for bullshit phase, because, yeah, trying to do this phase damageless is absolutely impossible. And I did it on the first try, and we mastered Scooby-Doo and the Cyberchase in 1 hour, 35 minutes. That is incredible. Oh my god, I cannot believe it. I did this fun on the first try. However, by some miracle, I managed to avoid the final chop from the Phantom Virus and managed to pie him, defeating him on my very first attempt, giving me the Cyber Ghost achievement. It's Phantom Virus, by the way, but whatever. Which allows us to trap and destroy the Phantom Virus for good and get a full mastery in Scooby-Doo and the Cyberchase for PlayStation 1. Alright, so here we are back on the grid, and you already know the drill at this point. So for the difficulty rating, I give this game a 6 out of 10, and that's mainly due to the collector achievement, especially when they decide to put items in the middle of black voids, like how they did with Egypt 2, and especially the catapult section in Amusement Park 2. However, if it was just this, I would honestly give this set a 5 or even a 4, but because Arctic 2 Collector requires you to be almost perfect throughout the level, I'll give this set 1 extra point for that. And when it comes to fun, I will admit that compared to Crash 1 and especially some parts of Luigi's Mansion, I did have more fun doing this set overall. But as I mentioned during the Luigi's Mansion grid section, I want to rate the fun aspect based on my enjoyment on the set as well as the variety of achievements that the set has. And sadly, because there aren't that many miscellaneous achievements, I'll have to dock some points. That said, I'll still give the set a 5 overall. I did have fun, but I wish there was more variety. Even though we will get to some annoying and BS cases, I honestly would have wished that, and I can't believe I'm gonna say this, we would actually had damageless achievements. Now granted, that would imply that you have to make a damageless achievement for the Phantom Virus, but you know, at the very least, I'm glad that's not a thing. Unfortunately, the creator of the set doesn't, for lack of a better word, exist anymore on the website, which means that a revision might possibly never happen, but it would be nice to actually, you know, see something change in the future. And you know what? As crazy as it sounds, I would have even added a subset where you have to get a perfect score on every single level, which means do the collector stuff, get every Scooby snack, and do all of it without dying. Maybe someone will do that, but I guess time will tell. And finally, we have the Hearts achievement, and even though I got it in around 10 minutes, the default answer will be Arctic Circle 2 Collector, just by the nature of this achievement. Now as a bonus, Cyberchase is also the very first game on the series to have a different version, that being a version for the Game Boy Advance. However, by the time of this recording, that version has no achievements. In fact, they're being developed as of this recording, so that's very exciting. But considering that the game is way too different from the PlayStation version, not to mention that I haven't played it yet, I'm going to skip talking about it for the time being. Despite the many flaws that this game has, I still enjoy Cyberchase. I don't love it or go back to it often, but I do enjoy this game that is based on one of my favorite Scooby-Doo movies back in the day. With a killer soundtrack that I listen to every once in a while, I'll give this game a 6 out of 10 in terms of quality. Yes, the controls can be stiff, but once you get used to them, the game is overall not that terrible, although Egypt and the final boss can be literal roadblocks. Unfortunately, the creator of this set doesn't exist on the website anymore, but I want to give a thanks to Bruno Kiko for making the set for another PS1 game that I grew up with. Alright, easy time is over. Let's go back to the Crash series. And there we go. Another set has been mastered, which, fun fact, I actually mastered this game on the same day as Luigi's Mansion. Yes, I'm actually serious. But yeah, like I said during the Luigi's Mansion outro, next up we're returning to the Crash series with Crash Bandicoot 2 Cortex Strikes Back, which by the time I'm writing this part of the script, I've already mastered the game. let's just say that I did work a little bit fast and also in advance when it comes to these Retro Achievement videos. So all I need to do now is make this video and work on the script for the Crash 2 video. But that all depends on my ability of not become lazy with script writing and also be more precise with my points, because sometimes I can just go on overextended parts for no reason. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give a like, and if you want to see more Retro Achievement Masteries, be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to not only get notified, but also to show that you enjoy what I do and motivate me to keep doing more. And of course, if you want to see my full mastery run, don't forget to check my Wolf Archives channel, where I will upload every mastery session I do, plus live stream VODs when I eventually start streaming, which I might do when I decide to do the Platinum Relics for Crash 3. I've been thinking about it for a while, and I'm pretty sure that's what I'm gonna start doing streaming, but we'll see. And as a final note, if you have a particular game you want me to tackle in the future, let me know in the comments. But once again, just make sure it's not Tomb Raider, because I will start Tomb Raider Retro Achievements when we reach Lara's 30th anniversary, which will be next year. So get excited, people. But with that, that's all I have for you today. Thank you all for watching. I'm Jonathan Wolf, and I'll see you all in my next mastery. Take it easy, everyone.